Resverlogix is a very advanced biotechnology company that's working on something called epigenetics. So that's turning genes on or off. And we're about 10 years ahead of the world in our development curve. As a matter of fact, this technology has already been granted breakthrough therapy designation from the FDA for its use in cardiovascular and diabetes and chronic kidney disease. These are all organs that are damaged severely from COVID-19, including pulmonary. And what we're able to do is close off some of the receptors that the virus uses to enter human cells. And we do that with this epigenetic technology. But more importantly, when a patient is infected with COVID, by the time you see them in the news clips in the respirator room, and it's awful to see, those particular patients no longer have COVID. COVID has run its course, but it's inflicted a damage on the patient's own immune system that causes those reactions. We reverse that action and turn off what is called medically the cytokine storm. The cytokine storm is simply many different inflammation factors in your own body turning on at once, and that's caused by COVID. But the reversal of it can be done with our drug, and that is going into human clinical trials within the next couple of weeks. Well, part of that trend is because of the overburden of the hospitals. And so it's not just COVID patients that are being affected. In my own family, we've had deaths that were related because of COVID, because not being able to get proper medical care during this last year. And it's a very sad situation. But if we can prove out our theories here, which in our preclinical medical tests in Australia and at the Nebraska Center, the Buffett Cancer Institute in Nebraska, we've been able to show that we can reverse the damage. The Australians in particular were very excited about witnessing the reversal of the damage done by COVID. And in their paper, they're commenting that 25% of patients who have had COVID go on to have continuing heart conditions. And they were studying heart cells, and the Nebraska Institute was studying pulmonary or lung cells. So it is very important. And that was published in the top publication in the world for biology and biochemistry. There are 296 publications, and Cell is the top one. So that was published in a 39-page article just a couple months ago. So we are very confident that this drug will work. Vaccines are very important. But unless we can vaccinate 7.5 billion people on the planet all in a 30-day window, this problem is going to continue. And the variants continue to happen. They're happening way faster than, say, the annual common flu would. So trying to stay ahead of the curve is going to be very difficult. We need a matching therapeutic that can stop the patients from ending up in a critical state with pulmonary or cardiovascular or kidney issues. A virus is like any other biological unit. It's designed to adapt for survival. So the virus keeps mutating for its own survival purpose. And that's bad news for us as humans. But as it enters a human cell, it enters through something called an ACE2 receptor. Now, once it's inside that human cell, it takes over the human machinery of that cell, and it starts replicating and making more and more COVID. So the first step of our drug is to stop that from happening. And it's an important step, but the most important one is the cytokine storm, stopping the cardiovascular and pulmonary and renal damage. The first step of stopping the replication, if you look at somebody famous like Donald Trump, who was getting tested every single day for COVID. Now, at the very beginning on day 1 or 2, he would have known he had COVID, so they started giving him antiviral medications, and it presumably worked for him. However, for the rest of us, for normal people, we don't get tested every day. We get tested only after we've become sick. But by the time you get those symptoms, that's usually day 5, 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. And by 10, COVID's dead anyway. So it's very difficult to tackle it with just an antiviral. Ours is an antiviral, just as strong as remdesivir, but that's not the problem. The problem is it's a stealthy virus. You have it, and the damage is done to your immune system long before you know you even have it. So before you're getting medicated. So the antivirals are helpful, but unless you can catch them on day 1 or 2 or very early in the process, again, you will see the continuation, and the virus seems to be mutating 4 or 5 times per year. That's an enormously high number, and continues to do so. We hear all about the Delta variant right now, but the Lambda variant is also out there, as are others already. So we'll see what happens, but I think we really need to work very hard on getting a therapeutic approach to stopping the deaths and the organ damage that's ongoing. And this organ damage isn't just in what we sometimes call as long haulers. This is in all the patients who have had cardiovascular or have had COVID-19. They have cardiovascular issues, they have pulmonary issues, they have kidney issues. So hopefully we can speed up our process and be as successful as Pfizer and Moderna. And patients, as you mentioned, patients who get this, preventative is very important in all therapeutics. But the patients who are getting this, whether they're diabetic, whether they're elderly, whether they have existing comorbidities, what they all have in common is when you have any of those conditions, heart condition or lung conditions, asthma, stuff like that, what you have in common is you have many ACE2 receptors, the part I was talking about where the virus enters the cell. You have more than a healthy person, way more. So being able to shut down a bunch of those is very helpful in the process of fighting COVID, and you know, as a preventative or after diagnosed. But again, the reversing the damage that your own immune system is causing. COVID turns it on, but nothing so far turns it off. And we have human data to show we turn those inflammation markers off in 12 to 24 hours. So now we test that exact same hypothesis that we've already done in humans. We tested in humans with COVID. And in our animal model that was published in Cell, we artificially induced these cytokine storms in mice. And because mice don't have ACE2 receptors, so they cannot get COVID. So we introduce an artificial cytokine storm, and 75% of those mice will die. Once they were treated with our drug, apabetalone, not a single mouse died. So we are very confident that this is going to work. We need governments to step up and help us. These are expensive programs, and as a public company, we have to be cautious about focusing on our main program for cardiovascular, pulmonary, and chronic kidney disease. So we were already working in these areas. It's not a surprise that our drug works. It was identified not by us, but by a group of 27 global universities that were studying COVID. They studied 20,000 drugs to determine which ones they thought would be best to repurpose for a quick COVID solution. And they published a list of 63, which we were number 2 on the list. So we have a lot of support behind us, but we do need governments to step up and help finance this so it can speed up delivery to people.